Very good. Then I'll call the meeting to order. And welcome, folks. It looks like we have a couple of guests attending, so maybe we could go around the room and give our name and make some introductions here. I'm Rick Meinking, and I was pleased to be on this committee for at least a decade now. So it's been fun.
On this committee for at least a decade.
David Kuhnhart, voter in Scarborough and member of Citizens Climate Hub.
Sustainability manager.
I'm Emerson. I'm a sustainability fellow. And I'll be here through September through the America program.
What college did you attend? Or is this after
I
college?
graduated already.
Okay.
I went to school in Rhode Island.
Oh, okay. You all right?
No,
Brown? Oh, I have a colleague that worked there one time.
And Emerson is originally from California, so she made the trek from San Francisco to Maine for.
You went a little while, so
Exactly.
that's
So-
good.
So Emerson will be supporting the vulnerability assessment and the open space plan and joining us for our meetings and wherever she can.
Well, welcome.
David Kirstein, committee member for not a decade, but a long.
And what? Yeah. And we'll go into our virtual land out there and go to Patrice.
You're muted, Patricia.
Hi, I'm Patrice Castenholz, and I am a member as of, I think, July or August. So not a long time. I'm an alternate also.
Good morning. I'm April Seither. I'm the Town Council Liaison to the Sustainability Committee
And also the vice chair of the council.
and also the Vice Chair of the Council.
And she's a member of the ordinance committee within the council.
What a handy
So
person.
she is a very handy person to have on our committee. No pressure there. And
We do have an attendee, so Linda, if you want to participate during the meeting, you can just raise your hand. And we also do have public comment period if you'd like to participate then as well. Just raise your hand and we will allow you to speak.
that was really a good one. What was your most embarrassing moment?
Everybody has some tests already.
That's a good way to like trick someone.
I'm glad for this quick study because that's exactly what I was doing.
We just got started, so you didn't
Great.
miss anybody. We have a couple of guests, so we were just going around introducing ourselves.
I'm Lydia Job. I've been on the committee since last May.
Well, great. We do have a quorum, so we had the minutes provided from the last meeting, which was back in December. And Jamie had sent those around and would like to entertain a motion to get those recorded into the record. And because we're mostly here, can we do show of hands or do
Yeah.
we need to? All right, we're gonna do a show of hands out there. The motion to accept the minutes has been seconded. All in favor?
Right.
All right. And we have our agenda, and I'm asking the committee if we have reviewed the agenda and wish to bring anything else to the table. I would like to just bring one. It's probably old business, but it's just to check in and see what else we can do as a committee to support the CPACE ordinance. Any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, let's move forward and talk about the carbon cashback resolution.
Rick, real quick, we'll just see if there's any public comment.
I missed it. Yeah. Any public comment out there? If you're attending virtually, want to raise your hand and we'll get you promoted. Seeing no public comment, I'll close it and we'll go to old business. And Jamie, I'll leave it to you to do the introduction and then we'll talk about the carbon cashback.
Sure. So, if you recall from our last meeting, David joined us and gave a presentation about, the carbon cashback legislation, that is currently being proposed in the US Congress. And requested that, this committee request that the town council support pass a resolution in support of that, that legislation. So the presentation is recorded and was included with the minutes. I did some work and revised the resolution that David had provided and put it in the format that our council is most used to seeing. So we can go over that as well. The Conservation Commission has not had an opportunity to see David's presentation. They meet this evening. Their meeting schedule has changed, so they're now meeting on the same day that you all are. And it's not on the agenda for this month either because they're wrapping up some things and couldn't fit it in this month, potentially next month. I'm waiting to hear back from how they want to proceed with that. So we can have a conversation from this group if this is something the group wants to support. If you've had a chance to look over the draft resolution, I can pull it up on the screen also if that would be helpful. And we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's too bad that we didn't get a chance to get any feedback from the Conservation Commission, because that was one thing that this committee felt like that was an important piece. It brings more unity behind that resolution if it wants to go forward. And I just feel like, I still feel that they're a very active committee and they have a lot of thoughtful people on that committee. And I don't want to be in our silo and have this go just from us to the town council. So where I'm coming from is I would like to defer any sort of vote on this resolution until we've heard back from the company.
Sounds like a great idea.
Could we have a contingent vote so that they have our information?
Well, I think that puts a bias to it, doesn't it?
But somebody has to vote first, and if
Well, yeah, but I think, well, I think what we want in order to help us inform our vote on is their thoughts. And I'm not ready to solidify my backing behind this until I hear from the commission.
Did we not find that the presentation hadn't gone to the Conservation Commission yet?
They have not seen it yet, no. They've been provided with the slides and a link so that they can go view the presentation given at this meeting last month.
They actually, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have a slightly revised set of slides because a couple of things have happened internationally and locally.
Anything you want to share with us that is significantly,
Well, it was actually the day that we met, December 13th, was the day after COP28 came together. And so there's just a little bit more information about the very strong international governance consensus that we need to transition away from fossil fuels. So then is how, and there are more and more people who are saying how. There are about 45 countries who have a carbon tax. There's good information from Canada now about how positive it is without negatively affecting the economy. And so there's some just additional developments, nothing significant. The only other thing that I was planning to say today was that I thought that the revision, the revised form resolution is great. And I don't have any complaints whatsoever about that. Spot on. There has also been introduced by a Republican from Pennsylvania, Brian Fitzpatrick, a different carbon pricing bill, which doesn't do the cash back. It does, let's say, save that money for other transition things. And the House sponsor of HR 5744, our bill, Carbajal from California, has immediately co-sponsored a version of this to show that they're collaborating on some forward motion. but it doesn't have what Maine most needs, which is the cashback portion, and which would benefit us quite nicely here without. So, those developments are not huge. The fundamental point of, we gotta go big, gotta make it a national and internationally effective policy to do what COP28 said we gotta do.
Well, I think from my sense, from the committee, and committee speak for yourselves, there is a sense of wrapping our arms around this, and going forward. But again, I just feel like I don't wanna be in the silo that we exist. And not let more, I think the more you get, the better we would have going forward to the council to get their support, because I don't think it's something that we're just gonna be able to give the council and say, we'd like you to support this. They're gonna wanna know more about this. And I think, representatives, it may even be that this is such a big, nationally, this is a big deal. And it might be that they're gonna need a little bit of, I won't call it hand holding, but they're gonna need some comfort zone here for them to understand and what impacts this is gonna do, not only for Scarborough, but in general. I think they're all thoughtful people on the council.
And I believe I mentioned that one member of the council on election day had told me that he would like to hear from both committee and commission. And so from the council's perspective, I completely understand that. Could I possibly ask if there's been any discussion or any conversation within the council about this? Is that fair to do, or through you?
I'm happy to pose that question to April. Has there been any internal discussions within the council? haven't seen it in public.
I give a committee update at the end of council meetings. So after our last meeting in December, I did at the following council meeting kind of just give an overview that this was something that you guys had discussed, and that we had seen a presentation. I kind of cued the council that this was coming to other committees, specifically Conservation Commission. Karen Shoup is the council liaison to the Conservation Commission. So I agree with you, Rick, strongly that this needs to go work its way through the relevant committees. And the more counselors that see this at the committee level before it comes to us as a full council, the better. So that it's been a limited discussion, mostly in the form of an update from me. But I have at least put it on people's radar.
No, that's excellent. So, it's just, nothing moves fast. And
so what is the timeline if we wait for a presentation of conservation, which is January? So
They're meeting tonight, so it won't be until February at this point.
February. I'm not in January.
That's okay.
Okay, so if they were to meet in February for the presentation, we'll probably discuss it in March.
I think that they may have a little bit more, I think David's planning to join this evening, and just participate in public comment. They will have seen, they've been provided the slides. I can give them the draft resolution. So I think that they're gonna have a little bit more information going into February's meeting than you are in December's meeting. So I'm not sure what, action they may be ready to take in February, but potentially they would take action in February.
Okay, and so we're meeting the same day as them, but in the morning.
Right.
What do we do in February?
well, yeah, we probably wouldn't do our formal endorsement until March.
Or reschedule the February meeting.
There's that potential too, but
Well, yeah, I mean, it was still in March. We meet the last day of February, so. But yes, we can meet earlier in March than later in March if that's what the committee wants to do.
Or should we try to put together a joint meeting to do each committee separately or a joint meeting?
we could join them at their next meeting if that's okay with them, or, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to having, if the chair, and I can reach out, or you can reach out, would not mind us having an agenda item and to include this committee to be part of that agenda item, just to be in the same room together, and then we can probably, that seems like the most effective and efficient way to do it.
A joint vote.
I like that myself.
Mhm.
How's that?
So would you all be available Wednesday evening instead of Wednesday morning on February 28th, if that's something that?
Usually my Wednesdays are open, Wednesday evenings. I could do it.
I think
I
they
should
meet at
shut up
6
before I.
They meet at 6 p.m.
Yeah. 6 to 7:30.
Say 28th. Yeah, I'm good to
Just trying
go.
to find ways to not delay this further.
No, I think it's good, and how's the committee feel like, well, you can't break yourself into two places, so this would mean that would likely be our only agenda item for the month of February from this committee. If we were to change the meeting to the evening,
Or you could still meet in the morning. and
that's
then
where I was
just
going.
join them.
We could meet in the morning and then and is there a way to virtually join if?
For Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to come in again.
It would.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not opposed to doing that. I think we would have some work that we don't want to just give up our whole meeting for one agenda item. So I would say we keep our February 28th morning meeting. And those that are, it should be stressed that we really would encourage participation on that Wednesday night with the Conservation Commission. If everybody likes that. Is that a good pathway?
Yeah, and I mean, like, this is all contingent on Conservation Commission priorities.
Right.
And making sure that
Right.
they can dedicate
Yep.
their meeting to.
Patricia, any comments
I
on
think
your
it's
end?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yep.
Then why don't we go that route, folks? Excellent. So we'll keep the ball rolling.
And then it would go to town council in March.
It could, or they may need a workshop or something like that, but if they go to a workshop, they could actually have that on their agenda after the workshop for that.
Yeah, and April, do you have a sense of how far out workshops are scheduled at this point?
We definitely have our February and first week of March workshop planned, but given that this isn't like a full hour-long workshop, I don't think we may be able to do, 5:30 to 6 and take this up and then do a second topic from 6 to 7. We've done that before as a council for something that isn't going to take necessarily longer than 60 minutes. So there's probably some potential there. The other nice thing Rick mentioned is now I'm in those leadership meetings. And so I do have a better sense of timing as this gets closer. And if this is something that Conservation Commission and Sustainability thinks is going to be ready for March, then I'll make sure it gets brought up.
April?
Thank you. All right, I think we have a pathway forward. Anybody comfortable with that? Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, the next, let's get back to. All right, we're on new business. Oh yeah, the EECGB group, that's the Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant. It's federal funds that are allocated to states through the federal budget. And Maine gets a pro rata kind of, it's a formulated a fund. And Jamie's got some ideas.
Yeah, so basically the 10 most populous municipalities in every state are getting formula grants, which basically means they are, for federal, that means we're getting $75,000 to do an energy efficiency or energy conservation project with. And so there are a number of things that are eligible for this type of funding. It can go towards planning, it can go towards equipment upgrade, it can go towards energy audits, it can go towards renewable energy projects and planning of those projects. So your agenda packet included a memo from me with a couple options, and we can talk about those and talk about maybe other ideas that this group may have. And I will just note that there is also a competitive grant, program also, that the town of Scarborough is not eligible for, since we're getting
Direct payment.
direct funding, from the Department of Energy. So the two, items that I had, spelled out in the memo were, starting to plan a municipal solar array. So, we have a 24 acre parcel of land, in our industrial area off of Pleasant Hill Road. It could be a good candidate for a solar array. There's pretty much nothing else that the town would do with that parcel. It's just sitting there. That it's close proximity to three-phase power.
What's the status of the vegetation on that?
It is like scrub vegetation, so
Scrub,
there's
scrub.
some trees, but it's not fully, forested or anything like that.
It's mostly construction debris.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Where is?
Slash.
it's on, Brittany Road off of Pleasant Hill
Pleasant
Road.
Hill.
Oh, okay.
It's very close to the railroad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are no natural human neighbors, if you will.
Yeah. it's
Yeah, the
kind of a-
abutters are, there isn't,
Yeah, it's kind of an ideal situation for a municipal array. So that would be one opportunity to look at. And the way that the EECVG grants are structured, you have two options. One is you can just get a grant, and so you manage the money, you choose how it's going to, what contractors and things like that you're going to work with, if any. Or they are doing vouchers where basically they have screened and pre-selected contractors and groups to essentially do the work that you outline. And obviously you'll have oversight and things like that, but it's a little bit more streamlined than trying to manage a federal grant. They've done a lot of that. So some of the payments will go directly to the contractor, not necessarily here. So we don't have to go through the accounting and the grant management for a federal grant, especially for one as small as $75,000. So that's kind of the route that I was planning to pursue with this, because it is more streamlined.
so the government has put out an RFQ and qualified contractors. How would we, then the process for us would be to put out our own RFQ and get these contractors based on the project that we have an idea on?
So it's my understanding that we submit our project description and information to EECVG. And they approve the project, and then they assign to us who we will be working with through their pre-screen process. So it does take out some of the town oversight and selection, but it also removes all of the reporting and tracking.
Yeah, it does lighten up the
Yeah.
workload. I know how the EECGB grants go, because in fact, it's very complicated and a lot of reporting. And I think even with that, it's Davis-Bacon and Buy
Yes.
America clause is in there. And so that presents some of its own challenges.
Yeah.
Now, we would assume if we were to do a solar, would we be looking at having a third-party operator of that? Or would the municipality want to be the operator
I think that that's something that we're gonna go through this process.
with the contractor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And given the size of that property, could some of that be community solar available to residents?
It potentially could be. So, the way that, so we would kind of not be meeting our own municipal ordinance, but as a municipality, we don't have to meet our ordinance. Our ordinance says that, the minimum acreage of a parcel for a community solar array is 25 acres. This one's 24. So I think it would,
Who owns the abutting land?
I haven't looked at that.
We could maybe entice somebody to do a land,
A lease
a land trust.
Yeah.
Put it in
or that.
and say for an acre, and then we wouldn't be in competition with our own ordinance, which I
I know, it's a
I
member of the
have,
planning
as a
board.
member of the planning board, I have a hard time saying, Mr. Developer, you have to follow the ordinance, but our own town
We're
doesn't.
gonna squeak under the water.
So I think that's something that we could get involved with in that aspect, but I think combine this with the fact that it could help with the town energy costs. Going with a community solar element to it would also be worth it.
Yeah.
And we've got experienced people on this committee that could really be of support to you as we try to go forward with this. I think it's super.
Could I provide an opinion? First of all, I was in solar industry for 13 years in California. The lightest touch on the town would be to make sure that you have a private entity funding it, right? You could use the $75,000 for environmental review, for design, overall design and so forth, but this property could fit 4 megawatts, almost 5, not quite. Megawatts and so you're talking about, over 5 million or it's certainly over $4 million. You want that to be on somebody else's shoulders, and so you want to entice a private entity that's got good investment.
And who needs a tax credit or something like
And who
that.
can use the biggest subsidy within it, which is the 30% or 40%. If it qualifies as a brownfield, they get a 40% tax credit. That's actually
I
a
didn't know
tough
that.
little, that a certain part of the Inflation Reduction Act said you get a 10% boost if it's a brownfield, and even more boost if it's US produced equipment and it's a brownfield. So they can, and what all that means is that they can reduce the cost of energy to whoever they sell to, whether it's split up into lots of pieces with individual buyers and it's a community farm, or whatever. But I would think of it as the most efficient thing for the town to do is to really find a good partner which demonstrated their capability to bring in outside and value and what will happen.
And I would assume that there's some pent-up demand to invest in a local product. So,
Yes.
We have a couple of investors that have done utility grade solar here in the town,
Yeah.
and if they get wind of this, they may be, saying, oh, this will not work.
The big issue, if I may, I believe, will be getting into the queue and passing through the queue with Central Maine Power, and the interconnection process is not easy. And that's going to be the impediment, if you will.
Fortunately, there's some thoughtful legislators in the session right now.
Yep.
And from last session, there's some carryover. So, that climate is looking better than it has in years.
But there are time limits on the main state programs. So moving this quickly, it would be favorable.
May I ask, what is a brownfield?
It's a formerly disturbed, essentially a dump of some kind, or environmentally challenged. So you're not taking a green sward, you're not taking prime farmland, you're using brownfield.
Okay, got it.
I didn't know that clause was in there. Another 10%, nice.
Yeah.
That was the first suggestion that I had. The other one was building energy audit. The Community Services Department has been proposing as part of our process, and I assume will be upcoming as well. Basically doing like building commission audits, and energy audits would dovetail nicely with that process. We've got a lot of buildings in town. Obviously, town hall is complex because of Trigen, and understanding our energy usage here is definitely a web. But then we have other buildings in town, our public works garage, buildings and things like that. So that was
schools or not?
It potentially could include schools. I'm not sure what work they have done for that. I know that some work had been done, especially in the primary schools, as they were working through the school building process, just to see what their current usage was and current conditions were. I hadn't, figured out whether it would or would not include schools at this point, but it potentially could.
Do you have a sense of what?
I don't, no.
Is there any efficiency main money for audits of municipal buildings?
Public, I'm changing my hat. No.
Okay.
Now I'm putting my hat back on as a committee member and suggesting that we consider. I am not a proponent of bringing. Generally speaking, if you're in a building and you have non-LED lights, you change your lights to LED. You don't need an auditor to tell you to do that. If you're burning oil or propane, it makes a lot of sense to change your heating system because that's inefficient. And you don't need an energy auditor to tell you that. You may need a design engineer to incorporate any new system that you want. But that's usually part of the cost of the project. And my experience is when given an audit to a third party or to the customer, slip a $50 bill in that audit and go back in 5 years and that $50 bill is still in that audit. Meaning you don't read it. It's a feel-good thing. It makes you say, oh, we have opportunities here, but nobody does it.
And so is your sense that the process that community services is already engaging is likely to uncover major energy issues? Or do we provide a memo to them?
What is
Encouraging them to,
what is the community services really engaged in?
So they're exploring basically building condition audit, so to understand what the maintenance needs are so that they can put together a capital plan for intended upgrades or anticipated upgrades over time, so that they're not surprised when something happens at a building and it hasn't been planned for.
Right.
So just to get a better understanding of what building conditions are and what they should be planning for in the future. Because community services, a lot of the building maintenance and upgrades falls on our community services department.
I see.
and so could we ask them to include an assessment of lighting and HVAC that they would provide to us that we could review?
Yeah, potentially.
Would that sort of provide?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to do a equipment inventory kind of thing and I doubt it's very cost. There's a big cost if you wanted to do a full blown like level 2 ASHRAE audit. That usually runs, I'd have to look in my database, but engineers charge per square foot.
Yeah.
Walk through and,
We could just put simple questions like, what are the nature of the light bulbs?
Yeah, what's the lighting?
and if they're heated with propane or oil, we definitely know that that's not the way to go.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the idea that community service, and I encourage them to continue that, is to try to get a master plan together. No different than our vehicle replacement program and stuff of that nature. So I think for the town benefit, spending the $75,000 to pursue this utility grade solar is probably in the best interest of the town of Scarborough. Well, I'm not discouraging audits.
No.
I just don't think the town, I think we could really demonstrate value fairly quickly on the benefits of taking that EECGB money and putting it to good use.
I have to agree with Rick. I think the town, the departments have a responsibility to do things like the energy audit on their own in the existing budget. The solar farm is much more forward-thinking use of a new source of money. And by the way, these are not LED lights.
They're not. They're compact fluorescent.
Which, if you put an LED light in there, your delta wattage is very, very little. That's why you don't see discounts in stores for the replacement of these types. Now, if they were a screw-in light bulb, that'd be a different story. But it's mostly the bang for the buck nowadays because LED lighting has just become the norm. It's heating and cooling. It's the electrification.
And that was just a sidebar to my comment that we have a responsibility as a municipality to make an evaluation like that and change them where it's practical, but it's only practical.
It is, and it needs third party. I mean, we have the talent within the community services to go about and say, yeah, or we should be doing this. They already have existing relationships with HVAC contractors. There's a lot of, support for whatever the town wants to do with the built environment, but we don't have it with solar.
The one thing I will just put a plug in, I guess, pun intended, for the building assessments is, kind of planning for the eventual upgrade of our heating system. So, and making sure that they are not when it's time to replace those systems, that they're not just going to put it on the version of an oil burner or something like that.
Yeah, you don't want to prepare for an emergency, because an emergency is the lost opportunity.
Right. And so I think, that's kind of what part of their goal is through that process, so that they're not in these emergency situations. But just for also, if they're planning on upgrades, let's make sure that they're planning on the right equipment that's and not just going to use what's always been there because it's always been there.
Right.
So is this a memo?
Yeah, I think maybe, and I'll have
Are
a
you able to
conversation.
make a quick, like a initial draft? for
Yeah,
us?
and I'll have a conversation with our head of community services also, just to put that bug in his ear as well. So I'm hearing support for a solar array. Is there anything else that we should be considering instead, or is this kind of the path that the committee wants to pursue?
Is there a path to electric car charging at the schools for staff?
Vehicle charging is an option as part of the grant process.
Like, is there a separate? There were other entities offering, like,
Yeah, so I don't know if Efficiency Maine is still doing, if they have an RFP coming out at all for vehicle charging.
Stay tuned. There's always opportunities, what they're trying to do. The point about having, a level 2 charger at the school for staff who just came from their house. 90% of the charging of vehicles is done at home at night. And the real push was to get the transportational hubs in Maine supported with EV. So you're hearing a lot lately. You heard it during the cold spell, how, and sharing the media for dramatizing things sometimes, but yeah, Maine still needs this infrastructure for, super cold days when you lose your distance in the cars. And so that's the focus I know of Efficiency Maine, is looking at that sort of thing. But it's an
I mean,
interesting,
it's something that we've discussed in the context of other employers in town, and that was part of the.
and we have our EV ordinance, which,
Right.
that has been. I remember when it got pushed through and I heard the council say, well, we're gonna be visiting this again because we'll probably have to tweak it. Well, we haven't had any interference from developers or any reluctance of the developers. We have some prior development that have said they were gonna do it, put it on the record, and then didn't do it. And
Do that.
now they can't do that, but they certainly did not go, and I think, in some cases, there's fulfillment contracts that are out there. And we may end up going back to some companies that did not do what they said they would do.
Yeah.
And make them do it. And
Okay, I just wanted to ask, hopefully in support of the solar array, and particularly if we're able to open that up first to the government. First to the municipal structure, and then next to residents.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about
The process for design, permitting, getting in CMQC and all of that. It's probably will flip the switch on the array right as we're ready to decommission. So it might be some good, succession.
Well,
planning
then we'll-
work.
And then we'll electrify this building and time goes on, and we'll get the bang for the buck, and we're doing the right thing.
Okay. That's exciting and practical way to go. And there's just so much to take advantage of. So.
Pictures of a solar array as it's being installed, you can't take pictures of it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Well, you can, but they're not very.
Take some before pictures at Rigby Road. okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Patricia, anything?
I love the idea of the solar array. Very, very good. Yeah. And thank you for explaining brownfield. We should get that
And
cleaned
find
up.
out if it- And find out if that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to, I'll have to do some digging on that one. I think there's a good possibility, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was a former public works kind of.
Is this because it's $75,000? Is this something that to be determined by staff? Or does the request have to? I'm assuming council would notify, but does council weigh in on that?
I guess that would be a question for April.
Don't know. I can ask.
I can't, we've had ECBG, you know, benefits right every year. I don't know, let us know what we.
Yeah, I don't know if the council has to authorize that spending or not. No idea.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Is anybody else
You will be-
eyeing that parcel?
Sorry,
Is anybody else eyeing that parcel?
it's owned by the town and it's, not designated. It's just kind of part of our, town, land inventory.
Because I know the land trust, you know, and the 30/30, does, if you have a solar farm, does that count towards our 30%?
I don't think that it would, and I don't know if there's really an ecological benefit to that parcel either, because it is kind of surrounded by a lot of other pretty interesting development.
Really small.
Yeah, and it's only 25 acres, so it's.
Well, but the land trust, I mean, they are very proud of any 5-10 acres of land that they get. And yes, it might abut a river or something, but they're looking for numbers, you know. So I just wondered, yeah.
Yeah, so the land trust is kind of looking at quality over quantity too, especially since we don't have a lot of large parcels left in Scarborough, so the ones that we're looking to conserve, ideally, it's good habitat with other good ecological benefit and things like that. I don't think that this one would check those boxes.
Thank you.
Well, I think you heard from us and
Great.
let us know, and it'll become an agenda item, and this committee will definitely be involved in that, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, so all the information is due to the Department of Energy by the end of April, so give me a good couple months to kind of work through some of these questions and get all of that submitted, and fingers crossed that they will say, yes, this sounds like a great project. Here's your
Yeah.
vouchers for $75,000
Go
to
forth and do good things.
make that work, yeah.
Do we need to go forward and find out the butters that would lease us or whatever the 1 acre?
I think we'll move forward with that, once things are a little bit more developed and solidified.
They can put.
All right, any other comments on the ECGP?
I think my last one was, can we see who's on the?
That's a good question.
Area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will reach out to them and see if they can provide us the list of their approved contractors.
Because if they're only approved vendors and contractors are high cost or something off, then we might not want to.
So, yeah, I think that that's that was part of the grant funding process, is to make sure that their services are gonna fit within kind of the. Okay. And I think that they may still be accepting applications for vendors, so I don't know, I would assume that like Revision would have kind of applied to be part of that process, and some of the other local solar folks. But Deb, I know you have connections there, if you want to check in to see if they applied to be an approved vendor for that.
And is DOE doing the approving?
Yeah,
Yeah. Excellent. The next agenda item is the goals coming from the workshop of the town council. They do this every year, kind of setting a chart way, and I'm gonna turn it over to you. And I know you and April may be tag teaming on this, but that's the next agenda item, so.
sure. So April, the goal setting meeting is coming up this weekend, is that correct? So you had requested at our last meeting that we kind of take a look at the 2023 goals and discuss the goals for 2024. So the 2023 goals were included in the packet. And if you all just bear with me for a minute while I move some things around. Let's see. Screen. Zoom, are you? Roll down to the sustainability ones. So hopefully you're all seeing the sustainability goals on the screen. So there's sustainability and conservation, and a lot of it was really related to 30 by 30 and conservation and sustainability into the town planning process and planning board review process. And so April, do you have specifics that you want to kind of go over, or anything specific that you want to know from me?
No, and really, I just want to be able to do, kind of an accurate report out to the council on sustainability's kind contributions towards whether it was ordinances or resolutions for 2023. And leadership met yesterday to set the agenda for Saturday's workshop, and Nick and I have been talking a lot about what our 2024 goals will be. And I just want to make sure that the goals of this committee are kind of in line with where the council is headed in terms of our priorities. We got the results of the community-wide survey back, and no surprise, the 2024 focus is going to be on growth, taxes, and probably traffic. And so, making sure that the good work that this committee is doing is also represented is kind of how I feel as the role, my liaison role to you guys, is to make sure that, your priorities continue to be council priorities. And so I just wanted to have this kind of conversation going into goal setting so that I had an idea of how I can support this committee.
Well, I'd like to see something in the neighborhood of, in the realm of, this new idea of electrification.
Okay.
And how Scarborough can keep progressing with the elimination of fossil fuels being used as the for heating loads. I'm not sure I got a quick bullet to add into that, other than part of this is our, should it be within our energy plan or sustainability plan from this committee? It kind of ties into the comp plan. But I think somewhere along the line of, you know, continuing, pursuing electrification in the built environment. Something of that nature. I'd like to see where we're also, as a town, we're working toward the elimination of burning fossil fuels and leading, providing an example to residents and businesses that engage and do business here in Scarborough. That would be mine, but it's selfish.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And I know it's not our recommendation to put in a line about transit, like partnering with regional transit, blah, blah, blah.
I was just thinking transit hubs. Charging at transit hubs.
I was just talking about the buses that run already from Biddeford, just.
Yeah, I guess, April, if you could potentially bring up the idea with fellow counselors of addressing built environment and addressing, you know, regional, you know, transportation, public transportation. I think it's great to have those within the traffic and transportation. Some of those are wonderful to have, but I think to Deb's point, we really, electrification of the built environment and getting folks to reduce miles traveled individually makes a lot of sense. So that would
Is
be.
there ordinance? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there ordinance work that we could do that would move us towards those goals?
Is there ordinance work we could do?
Yeah, we have the building standards that are written in ordinance. There's nothing that
Rick, what's happening with the
Stretch
stretch
code?
code and adopting?
the adoption of the 2021 I-codes is imminent. The stretch code is imminent as well, as because that's state law. But
But the 2021 code will do a lot to get us closer to electrification as the standard.
as in the world of new construction,
Right.
basically, there's a lot of that, and then it's all new construction.
Yeah.
And there is in the I-codes, you know, existing buildings, and if you were to do a massive renovation or a change of use of a building, it triggers code, which would then, you know, be looked at like new construction. But there's nothing in the code that mandates a building to undergo its own
Right,
transformation to electrification.
right, unless it's going through large redevelopment, significant redevelopment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing-
Go ahead, Patricia.
One thing that I was thinking about, the Sustainability Day, which I'm sure we're planning on having again. For consumers, I'd like to see encouraging induction cooking, and, you know, we had heat pumps and heating, hot water heating featured, but I think we need to also look for all the homeowners in Scarborough to show them how this is possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole electrification pathway
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know. And having a solar array, you know, coming to Scarborough, that just is another component in this whole equation, so.
Yeah.
We're on the right path, we just,
Yeah.
you know, need teeth in it, and I guess Deb had a good suggestion. Take it for what it's worth, April, how you wanna present that, but really, we can't ignore the built environment either.
Mhm.
And that in itself is the current load on everything. I mean, that's where we're burning the fossil fuels today.
Yeah.
And I believe that with new construction and the support of enhanced codes is going to only help solidify that with new construction. And so we're in, you know, incremental, we're in good shape that way. We just don't have ways to take care of our current
Yeah, what's already existing.
inventory. There's a lot of homeowners that, you know, could use electrification and really, it's the right approach to go.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
My other
Is that-
question for this committee is, have you guys had an update from John Anderson as finance chair about your sustainability account? I'm hoping that makes it into the FY25 budget.
As far as I know, no one has heard anything,
Okay,
so.
That budget process is now beginning, right? That
Yeah.
the 2025 bias, geez. Another year, huh?
I
Yeah,
need to
so-
hop out of this meeting and go to another one. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That's a good point. Maybe we should ping or make sure that that's not off the radar.
that's all. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we've laid the foundation for those questions. And I know when John Clucci was around, you know, we had a really good meeting, and that the finance director has been part of those conversations. And now with a change of leadership on the finance committee, I just want to make sure that we, you know, continue those conversations. And I think that John will be really open, John Anderson, will be really open to these conversations. So I just want to make sure that doesn't fall off in terms of what you guys want to do, because the budget process has started.
Communicate somehow, but message to,
Jamie, how can,
I would suggest as chair, Rick, that you reach out and probably CC April as well, just to see. Inquire about the status of the memo and the request, and to offer that, you know, the committee is here.
all right, I'll do that and copy you, and I'll also copy Autumn, because it's her funding.
Well,
It's,
that's true.
the funding comes, as you know, it comes from the permitting and those kind of fees that, surplus with this account. So want to make sure she's in the loop there, but yeah. I think that.
And we also have a raised hand from Linda. Do you want to? Linda, you can unmute.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know I'm from Wells, and David and I have been working to get different towns in Maine to support the carbon cashback national policy. But it was very helpful to me to hear your discussion of how to, at a local level, decrease carbon emissions. I just wanted to suggest Wells did a grant to electrify their school buses. I don't know if you guys have done that yet, but that's one thing that you can think of. And I strongly, strongly endorse including induction cooking, stovetop things. You can buy one for like $150 or maybe something like that. And showing them at your sustainability day, because that's another really big use of gas and carbon fuels. And it's an easier, it's an easier win than heat pumps and electric vehicles, because it's much less expensive. So
Bring a
thank you
chef.
for letting me talk.
Bring a chef who has experience with who's as good as gas, but has no indoor air pollution or asthma.
Thank you, Linda. And in regards to the electric buses, it is something that this committee has discussed. Our chief department is a little hesitant to adopt new technology. They're an early adopter in the past, and it didn't work out for them so well. So they are a little hesitant. I think it'll help like more school departments in Maine start converting or adopting electric buses, or maybe more open to getting on board. So thank you for that suggestion.
The town of Wells also has Philip's experience with creating community solar projects in support of municipal facilities.
Yeah, there's a lot of municipalities, Freeport's another town that has been really active in community solar program.
Yep. Portland has municipal arrays, Wyndham has a municipal array, it's, yeah. For municipalities to have their own, because it makes good financial sense. Municipalities that generate their own power.
April, anything else we can do to support you?
No, I just
I'll
want to
get
make
a
sure I'm
letter
supporting
out
you.
to- Well, I just, I'd love for you to bring those kind of things to your workshop, and see if we can't get a little bit of traction and fighting that. It's not, it's codified in your goals. And, really would like to have council for those kind of efforts.
On the budget front, if you were able to create a community solar farm, even if it's, the solar farm itself is owned and invested in by private parties. If it's on property, you can collect rent
Sure.
every year and
Oh,
put
yeah.
that into your sustainability budget.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's not insignificant.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. And, you go down 114 through Gorham and you see that solar array there and you see the. I wish there's some way we could get those mounted up near, those are air brakes and why can't we really have a closed cabinet on the ground and not up in the air? I mean, talk about some resiliency. Although floodwaters in ground level transformers don't work so well.
Yeah. That would be a challenge for everyone.
But the highlands in Gorham, you're up on these hills and those kind of things, it's a shame, but at any rate, we all set with that topic?
Good, April?
All right, I just want to bring up the suitcase ordinance because one of the things that delayed any action was the council felt like it wanted to have the election and bring on any members before they went down that road with the CPACE ordinance. And I hate for it to get lost. And fortunately, our council vice chair is also on the ordinance committee. And so sorry, you volunteered for this committee.
Wow, this is great.
Is there a way that we could reintroduce that back onto a very near future ordinance meeting? I don't think it's a time consumer. The town has adopted the PACE program that's with the residential side, but the CPACE could in fact help accelerate electrification when we talk about our built environment, because this is a potential funding, or could provide a funding gap for the existing building stock that wants to move forward and do some of the work that they want to do and do this electrification. And I just think Scarborough businesses are missing this opportunity as well as new construction. So instead of bringing in even a natural gas line into a new building, why not do it by the wire? Preferably underground, but that's not always feasible. But so I guess we asked in April, how can we get this on the ordinance committee agenda soon?
So I think the CPACE ordinance was a victim of circumstance, unfortunately, because when you first gave the presentation, Jean Marie was absent from that ordinance committee meeting and it was just me and Nick. And now Nick is council chair and no longer on the ordinance committee. And so you have Jean Marie having not heard the presentation and Don Hamill having not heard the presentation. I'd be happy to sit through the presentation a third time if that's what it takes. And we did at our last ordinance committee kind of do some housekeeping and discuss ordinances that, were at least in progress or had been brought to us, but the work had fallen off. And it's kind of I think for next month, the committee will be focusing on the cannabis work, and then some stuff that Autumn's going to be bringing to us. But I can certainly bring it up with Jean Marie and talk with her about getting it on a future agenda item. I think it helps too, when the request comes from staff, Jamie and Autumn, just to kind of reinforce that the work is done and it's the presentation is ready and the justification is there, and that it's really not a heavy lift and that
Just need to
really
continue
is a matter.
the meeting times to bring Jean Marie up to snuff and Don. Happy to make that happen if that can be part of. Are you allowed to have third party into your ordinance committee meetings to provide information?
Yeah, we had, your colleague from.
Right. And so that's all, I mean, it's 15 minutes. And if you can find a way to carve 15 minutes, and I'll email Jean Marie as well, and I can actually send the committee the presentation that will provide some background information. Because I know Don and Jean Marie do their homework, and I know they're probably, if we can get that information to them and say, here, just grab a bowl of popcorn and you'll be done with the popcorn at the same time you go through the presentation. When you live here, you'll be done. Fairly cut and dry. All right, I think we can do that.
Yeah, and I will, I have kind of kept pushing this with Autumn. It might help if you check in with Autumn also.
Okay.
Yeah, because at this point, she's got so many ordinances and things like that.
He's working, he is working like a crazy and it's all good. I mean, the parking ordinance, there's a lot of things that she's tying together and trying to fit other pieces that are somewhere out there, but they need to be pulled into the ordinance, so it simplifies it. And I think that's a real effort. And, I know that's what the ordinance committee is going to be looking at throughout this year.
Yeah.
It's from Autumn.
Yeah.
It's already shown, at least from a planner on the planning board, you know, having the codified in a more simpler ordinance is really helpful in our deliberation with the applicants.
Good, so yeah, I'll touch base again with Autumn. It would probably have to be with us
I'll reach out.
as well.
Every time I reach out, I'll CC you.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. That was what I had wanted to bring up that wasn't on the agenda. And now I guess we're on updates.
April, you're first if there's anything else.
I can't think of anything else. Committee work is well underway for 2024 now. The reorganization of the council has happened and we're going to have our goal setting meeting on Saturday and budget season has started and just work. The school building. So this year my assignments are liaison to this committee. I'm the communications chair. I'm on ordinance. And I'm also on the reorganized school building committee again. And so those are going to be my priorities this year. And I think a larger part of the council's time is going to be spent on the school project, given Nick and I's involvement in that. So that's kind of where the council is headed right now.
Well, we're very pleased to have you on the committee. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thanks.
Rick, planning board's next.
Planning board, oh, if you haven't seen the old Cliff House down on Route 1, or they got torn down and built.
Yes.
There's a new cafe there, Luna Cafe, I believe, and next door is looking like a retail. But it's been totally, it reached its CO, obviously now they're occupying it. And what a difference that made in that little section of town. It really was good. It was this past Monday, we had a planning board meeting, not anything really big there. The one thing that you may hear more of in apartment complex, the 120 unit, they're at 5 floors. They came back to us wanting to relocate one of the buildings due to some issues with the current position of that one building. And we did not approve it because they're at this juncture, because we want to know what they're going to do with the place created from that. They're not expanding their construction zone or anything like that. They just want to move the building. That means where that building used to be is now vacant. And there was no plans for that, and they still want to talk to the impervious paving right in front of a vacant lot. So we encourage them to give it some thought and come back with a thoughtful approach to that. That was really the big topic last night.
Is
or
this
Monday.
spot on Mussey Road? Yeah.
Question about the Costco building?
Yeah.
Were there to be chargers there?
Yeah. I didn't want to call them out, but that's what I drove around there one night when it was empty and I said, I'm looking for those chargers.
I did the
Because
same thing.
I personally asked on the planning board, I personally asked what level chargers those were gonna be. And he said they were gonna be level 3 chargers, which is perfect, just right off the turnpike. And it would, by the time you're done shopping in Costco and you eat a hot dog, which are very good, I hear.
They are very good. Sorry.
I heard they were, I haven't had
They
one
got
yet.
rave review in the Press Herald. Yeah.
But, no, there's no charging.
I said as well.
And so, yeah, I brought that up.
Did they do?
I don't know. They weren't required to. If they were to do that today, they would have had to. But, it was a pulling teeth just to get 6 chargers total, out of 296 parking spots. It was pulling teeth with, of course, it's the big box store mentality. Come into a town and we'll do what we want to do because we're gonna help the town with a new store.
In the county that I used to live in California, there was going to be a big expansion of and fuel terminals, fuel pumps. And we forced them to put in 10 or 12, I can't remember, electric vehicle chargers. And they agreed. They at first said, but then they finally.
They have it on the print. Got him to put it on the print and have him say it in public. And very.
We have done it before and you're in power. Can you withhold their C of O to?
No, they've already
Oh,
occupied.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some performance things and I'm sure it's not landing on deaf ears within the staff of the town. So, I just can't wait to see pavement and
I think the idea.
Which is why we have our ordinance
I
now.
know, but I'm glad we do, and we have teeth now, but I was just annoyed at it.
I was shocked too. I was shocked.
And so someone is following up with them?
That's within the planning.
Planning
staff.
department.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the planning board. And I got voted as vice chair again, so. I'm pleased to, I really enjoyed the role of being a planner.
We're glad to have you in that spot.
So for Conservation Commission, I mentioned that their meeting schedule has changed. That is to allow them to provide comment on planning board applications. So this month is their first meeting schedule. It aligns better with the planning board schedule to give them time to look at the process and provide their comments back to the planning board on that. The other thing that they are looking at is kind of trying to wrap up the recommended environmental standards, which is a proposed new ordinance looking at increasing buffers and setbacks around our natural resources. A lot of time was spent looking at the marsh. And given what we saw on January 10th and January 13th, having increased buffers and setbacks around the marsh is really important so that we're not dealing with loss of property and things like that. And with the fact that sea level is rising, the marsh has space to migrate inland, so that it is what's currently converted into or transformed into a as sea level continues to rise. So I'm just kind of looking at that, planning for that. In the marsh, and then thinking about the importance of our tributaries into the marsh and ensuring that the water that's into the marsh is clean, so increasing buffers and setbacks around streams and rivers as well.
On Route 1 over the marsh.
So still DOT is still working on that. They have hired consultants to do some modeling for them to look at the opening. Initially, they had said that they were not going to change those openings, that they were fine. And they received a lot of pushback on that. Not surprising. So yeah, they've just turned over all of the data that they collected through the fall to their consultant to do the and what the openings should be for Route 1.
Does that project extend to the Pine Points or Blackwood?
So it includes Route 1 and Route 9, the Pine Point Road near the Audubon Center, but not further down. That will be not Black Point Road, no. So there is a group that is being led by Southern Land Trust that has applied for NOAA funding through the Coastal Zone Management Program. And that is going to be looking at a much larger kind of view of the marsh and planning for migration and sea level rise and looking at the vulnerable crossings to kind of identify and prioritize those and thinking about areas for marsh migration, which definitely the assessment that will be getting underway. We'll be looking at those road crossings as well as part of the vulnerability assessment, which will be getting underway in February. And I will say, allowing more water to flow under Route 1, the town is really going to have to start thinking about Payne Road as well. Because that one was closed for both of the January 10th and 13th events also because of flooding. So
I was surprised to see all roads closed, but there was water rushing across that from somewhere to somewhere that fell.
So if you look at the sea level rise predictions under a 6-foot scenario of sea level rise, Spurwink Marsh and Scarborough Marsh become connected.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
Well, it was an eye opener for a lot of people now. Disasters tend to be forgotten after a while and we go back to the old ways. I think there's a lot of push to, and you just heard that the governor had convened the Climate Action Council in an emergency session to discuss what had happened and
Maine's been pretty lucky in terms of climate related events up until this month, and now it's becoming very relevant. April has her hand up.
Go ahead, April.
Yeah, just tangentially related. I wanted to let this committee know that the council is meeting jointly with the Cape Elizabeth Town Council on February 7th to discuss the plans for Sawyer Street, which was also completely closed and flooded. And I don't know if anyone saw the pictures of the car that had gone off the road and was.
We knew that. I mean, that road is, that whole area is gonna.
Right there, and that every time there's a full moon.
Yeah.
But the crazy part was I took my other route and that was flooded too by the Cape water.
So you could be
And
isolated.
so I was suddenly like, I'm on an island.
Yeah.
Build your boat, build
Yeah.
your boat.
Yeah, it was, we actually have interviews this week with consultants who are assisting, who have applied to assist with the vulnerability assessment. And one of our questions is going to be, given what we saw on the 10th and the 13th, like, how are you going to use that information to inform this effort?
That wasn't even considered part of the, was it the 100-year storm scenario?
So in terms of tides, it was the January 10th tide was a 3% chance tide. And the January 13th was the 1%.
1%?
100-year tide. We set
Okay.
a new record for high water mark. Previously, it was the blizzard of 78
Right.
was our highest tide.
So we did make the 100. Wow.
And there were,
Yeah, we met the 97 and the 100-year.
and there were neighborhoods where water was coming up driveways.
Mm-hmm.
So those folks were trapped as well.
Yeah,
Well-
it's very eye-opening that,
We have to keep the energy, no pun intended, but maybe so.
yeah, we
What
need to
happened, keep
remember
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah, let's not forget
Think
what
about
happened.
that moving forward. And so, yeah, maybe resiliency should be a town council goal as
Oh,
well.
yeah. And we might want to, I mean, it's happened since this draft, but in the reference to our coastal position, add a reference to those historic
The storms specifically.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it was a crazy few days and, you know, our public works, public safety and engineering staff are still working on the assessment and getting that information to the county, to the state. Request a disaster declaration for those two events. So.
All right, well, thanks. I think that concludes our agenda. I just want to make one comment is if you haven't read the survey results that came out, I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I can share those if that would be.
Yeah,
easier
why don't
for
you
folks.
share it with the committee? That'd be great. It really had some good stuff. I mean, some well-earned, good news within that survey. But it also was very eye-opening to what we still have left to do. And we can't stop. So, thanks for sending that around. That'd be great.
Sure.
Anybody have a particular item they want to bring up for next month?
Well, I'm hoping we'll be working on this solar situation.
Well, I think there's more.
Yeah, I mean, like I will try to have an update for next meeting. Like I said, the application is due at the end of April, so probably not a ton of information between now and then, but I'll just keep you informed of kind of what's happening in the interview.
We have to keep our eye on GoPIF, and the governor's office of innovation in the future,
Planning innovation in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there was an update on the budget, maybe.
Yeah, if on the budget request for the
What
sustainability.
to do with that?
Okay,
Do we need to take a decision on adding the acre to the 24?
I don't know that we need to at this point. I'll do a little bit more looking at the GIS to see kind of who owns the parcels. Maybe need an easement or something like that to get us up to the 25.
yeah, I would really like to. I could just,
I think 25 sounds good too for marketing purposes.
yeah. Get that 5 kW or megawatt.
I also just want to say, related to the Community Resiliency Partnership, I just received notification that Scarborough's application was approved for another 2 years, so we're members of the partnership. That's basically opens up funding opportunities for the town. For the Community Action Grant, which is the grant that we have that's supporting the Route 1 and Route 9 effort. There was one thing that's in my head that just totally flew out of my head, so.
And they're gonna be coming out with other additional rounds, but that is funded within the general budget.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, we want to make sure that we're at. So
Especially with big old marsh sitting in the middle.
that's why we have sustainability. That was accomplished without that. We did it. All right. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn? Thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you, April. Good luck on Saturday's workshop.